Hi, today I want to talk to you about removing color selectively in post-processing. Now, for this particular image here, I shot the photograph this dog in the studio using a pink seamless background. It was Valentine's Day, it seemed appropriate at the time, but now, after the fact, I decided that's probably a little bit much. Before I really get into it, the first thing I would do is maybe do a little cropping here and maybe like an 8 by 10 kind of format. Move that a little bit. And I decided this vignette's probably a little too much, so I'm going to dial that back to 0, add a lens correction profile, and that gets rid of most of that. From here, I probably add a gradient and brighten it up just a little bit. I'll kind of bring it in. Just want to even things out, and I think that'll make the job a little bit easier. I think we're pretty good there, but you can always work on the slider a little bit after the fact and give it a try. I think we were pretty good where we were. Looking at the histogram, you can see we're pretty far to the right. We have a pretty bright white dog. We haven't actually clipped any highlights, so I think we're pretty good shape. If I wanted to, I could bring those white values down just a touch. That way we see a little bit more texture in the fur. From here, my approach is really to start in Lightroom and then bring it over to Photoshop to finish it off. And the reason I like that is because the hue, saturation, luminance layer offers a really nice way to dial this back. And the reason that this works so well here is because there's really not a lot of pink tones in the dog. You can see there's a little bit here in the side of the muzzle. But overall, it's just a fairly pure white coloring, and that's going to make it a lot easier. There are different sliders. So luminance is a brightness, saturation is just the level of saturation of the color, and hue is going to change the underlying color of it, and you can see as I move this over how that changes. Actually, just kind of moving it more towards a coral, I think, is fairly nice, but for the sake of this video here, we're going to remove that color as much as possible. First thing I'll do is remove the saturation. Not completely. If I go too far, then I start to see some color coming out of the dog that I don't want to lose. But if I come most of the way, I think we're in pretty good shape, and if I click, you can see how that looks. Next, I'm going to brighten up those red channels to make it more of a very light pink. And again, you don't usually want to go too far. I think in this particular image I can kind of get away from that. What you also see is I introduced a whole lot of noise for the background, and it's something I can address here. And if I go to the details panel, I can click on the noise reduction. I bring the luminance noise up a little bit, and it's best to go just a little bit, and you only want to apply as much as you need. I'll try different settings a little bit. Somewhere in here looks pretty good. You see how, without really losing too much detail in the dog's fur, which is what we really want to avoid. Nice sharp detail in the fur and around the eyes. So I think we're good here. So next thing to do is bring it over into Photoshop. And the way I like to do that is as a smart object. So I do edit, smart object. Now the reason I like that is because it allows me to tweak these settings after the fact if I realize I made a mistake. But also it's using smart objects has some other benefits, and it makes the whole workflow very non-destructive. From here I would probably go to the black and white adjustment layer, and the way that I would do that is either clicking on this little half circle, black, half circle, white, or I could click up here. Learned it this way, so that's kind of my preference. And you can see by doing that, I've of course introduced black and white. Overall, if you see, if I bring those red tints up, we really make a nice background. And of course, now that the dog is black and white, and we can address that in a certain way. If we turn this back off, we can select this pink, and there are a number of tools we can use for that. We can select color range and then click on it. Didn't quite get it all, so I can click on the little plus and then click on those areas that I missed, and you can see that's pretty accurate right there. If I turn that on, you can see how nice that looks. From here you can see there's just a little bit of a pink fringe, so we're going to want to go ahead and refine that mask a little bit. Right clicking on the mask to refine mask, and the first step is always to click Smart Radius and kind of drag it over a little bit. And you can see it's improving a little. You have to give it time to kind of catch up. There's still a little fringe up here, so what we're going to want to do is activate this tool, and we're just going to want to brush on the areas that need a little fine tuning. And we'll click OK. So that's the easiest approach that I would do. Again, just kind of do the before and the after. You can see there's still a little bit of pink here if I zoom in. So we can further fine tune that. We can do the refine mask again and perhaps shift the edge a little bit. If we go a little bit to the negative direction, you see how it pushes it out the wrong direction, but direction we can see we bring it in. Because the dog is mostly white, if we go a little too far here in this step and make the edges grayscale, it's not going to be a glaring error. Depending on the color of the fur, that may be more of a problem. You can see him kind of looking around at the edges, and I think we're in pretty good shape here. Anytime that you've got a tool active, if you hold on the space bar, then you can get the hand and you can easily move around. So we're going to say OK to this, and I'm going to zoom back out, which is Control 0 or Command 0. And the final thing I'll do here is perhaps give it a little bit of a, clicked on the wrong thing, click maybe a curves adjustment layer. Bring that background up just a little more. You can see how if I bring it down, it's really only affecting the dog, so we're just going to bring up that. And what I really want is only this, for this to apply to the background layer. So now I'm going to make this a clipping layer so that it only affects the area that's in the layer below it. Control-Alt-G is the way to go. Now you can see it's got a little arrow. And so now what we're doing is we've automatically applied this layer mask to the layer above, and we can see how that looks if we hold on Alt and click, kind of before and after. And I think we have a pretty solid edit here. Let me know if you have any questions. Definitely, this is a little bit more of an advanced technique, but very, very useful for many situations, not just removing pink seamless backgrounds. Thank you so much.